But somewhere after doing that for about a dozen years or so, I realized that my passion lies elsewhere. So I made a conscious move to the people side of things, which is the HR training and development side of things. And that's where I've spent the rest of my career.
And when you look at, typically in India, in startups, they are more fascinated with growth.
A lot of times for growth, we compromise on some of the basics, which you mentioned in terms of having the right processes, the right systems, the right culture also as well. So I think we compromise on those aspects, and in the short term, yes, you may get some amount of growth and get some success, but then you are not really build the right foundation to help you take you again to the next level from there. So that is why I feel culture is not a one-time project or exercise.
It's an ongoing.
It's an ongoing thing that should be lived and talked and done. But more importantly, is culture is about how the leadership team walks the talk.
For almost 3 years now, you are one of the initial set of clients that we got onboarded on Wealthy Nivesh. How's been your experience in last 3 years with us? Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of My Money Panda with Wealthy Nivesh. Today we have got Mr. Dilip Jain, who is a seasoned HR professional and a leadership development expert. He is founder of Hyphen Consultancy and he is an independent director with MCon Rasayan. Today we are going to discuss with him about his journey as a professional and his experiences with money and his experience with Wealthy Nivesh. Welcome sir, welcome to the episode.
Hey, hi Ankit, thanks for having me here.
Great, sir. So, sir, to start with, we'll be very happy if you can take us through your career journey. What all transitions you had? How's been your experience as a professional?
Okay, my professional journey.
Yeah,
So it's been a long one. I think overall about 32, 33 years now that I've been working as a professional. Started off in the capital market space, BFSI space. Used to manage operations and a bit of P&L, so that was my role. I was with a lot of startup organizations actually too. When I say startups, when I say the names now, you may not,
Yes.
you may feel not, but I mean, I was in the startup days with HDFC Bank, then moved to Morgan Stanley, which wasn't very large in India then, and also with JP Morgan. So, I've been in diverse corporates. I've done both, Indian capital markets and the international capital markets, as well as a bit of banking operations. So it's been a good mix of that. But somewhere after doing that for about a dozen years or so, I realized that my passion lies elsewhere. So I realized that I am more passionate about the people side of things.
Okay.
And I had already doing a lot of stuff in my large operational roles in terms of really doing things with the team. So I made a conscious move to the people side of things, which is the HR training and development side of things. And that's where I've spent the rest of my career.
And probably because you have seen the growth trajectory of these firms, you were confident that you will be able to grow your own business as well.
Yeah, that came after a while. So after this transition, I actually spent time in the corporate world as well in the training and development roles. So my last corporate role was with JP Morgan as the head of training and development over there. And that's when you can say the entrepreneurial bug bit me. And I quit and I started on my own. Hyphen Training and Consulting. That's my firm which was started then.
So, if you can take us through your specific job requirements in every profile that you did. So, I understand you mentioned operations and your last was in training. So, if you can tell us about these transitions from one domain to another, and what were the job skills that were required for each kind of domain or designation.
Okay. So initially I think there was a lot of learning because my academics were not really from the capital market space or the banking space. So I joined actually Stockholding Corporation of India, which really was an excellent learning ground in terms of really learning about capital markets and how things were working in those days. Remember, it was the physical market, so a lot of physical dealing of shares, and actually the experience of going to BSE and seeing the trading ring and the shouting going on and all of that stuff. So that's the experience we gained there. HDFC Bank was a transition into really developing a system and a process and putting in place a team and really developing the whole startup phase over there. Then moved to global operations in terms of a mix of India and global operations at Morgan Stanley, and continued that with JP Morgan, where I was at one stage handling about 60 odd international markets in terms of really their settlements and the forex and all the related aspects over there. And that's when you can say I really decided to make a final and conscious shift to the people side of things, and started with my journey on the training and development side. I think that was a great transition, and I would say JP Morgan as a firm is great in terms of helping people make such transitions and giving them the required time and space to do that. And having the managers who are confident about allowing you to do those kind of changes and guiding
Experiments.
you through those changes. And I think it was a great learning experience for me, because I got a chance to really work through as JP Morgan was building their India team. So there was a lot of need for training and development, growing, coaching, mentoring, a lot of people, a lot of those programs were put in place. And this was in partnership with the global teams. So there was a lot of global best practices that came in, and we partnered in terms of how do we contextualize things to India and how should we roll this out in India, and also develop indigenous programs for India given the huge growth that we were seeing in India. So I think it was a mix of good entrepreneurial stuff being done in India for the huge growth that we saw. At the same time, there were some inputs and partnerships from the global team. So I think it was a good mix, a good kind of mix of both the aspects. And that was a fantastic learning experience, because we developed a lot of things with the growing India team. We built customized learning journeys. We built almost kind of a OD framework in terms of what needs to get done at what level, what are the competencies. So I think I would say that's a huge learning ground for me, where I learned all the ropes and actually put things in practice from an HR and training and development perspective.
So, Mr. Jain, so when we look at career development, there are two tracks. One is कि you become a subject matter expert. The other one is, which is very typical to PSUs in India, that which is called as general manager track. कि You do cross domain kind of jobs, and then you become a general manager in the sense कि you can supposed to be do any kind of work. So do you think in a way you got general manager kind of exposure working in American MNCs?
Yes and no. So I think change has something, I would say that has been a large part of my journey. So from a background perspective, I think I'm, done something diverse. So I've done my cost accounting.
Yes.
Prior to that, I've done my science. So, again, there's a change over there. I
Drastic
started
one.
working as a cost accountant, did a, very small stint as a cost accountant, but then really moved to the capital market. So again, a change. From capital markets, I moved from India to the international stage. Then I moved back into, a lot of the cash. So the cash management, cash flow management, that kind of banking experience. And then I again moved back to international markets. And then I moved to the people side of things, where I was managing the whole lot of training and development initiatives, which was across, right from new hires, induction to senior leadership development, and the whole range of things, including product training. So I think change has been a constant. So I would say yes, it helps to have cross functional and what you call general management, so to speak. But I think what is important is knowing the context and the underlying details, because otherwise you become a very high level general manager. So it's important to know the context and the underlying details and understand that, even if you're not coming from that background. Without that, it wouldn't really lead to much success.
Great. And so you mentioned three words: systems, processes, and practices. And when you look at typically in India in startups, they are more fascinated with growth. So do you think that in a way, many times, I'm not saying every time, but many times people ignore these small things. I'm using the word small because in their universe they are supposed to be smaller things. But do you think growth is rather a side effect or outcome of these things rather than being an independent entity?
I think you've got it right. A lot of times for growth, we compromise on some of the basics, which you mentioned in terms of having the right processes, the right systems, the right culture also as well. So I think we compromise on those aspects, and in the short term, yes, you may get some amount of growth and get some success, but then you are not really build the right foundation to help you take you again to the next level from there. So I think sustained growth requires these aspects to be there. And which is why what we have seen is the people who succeed. I mean, I do a lot of stuff with a lot of different corporates, large and small, and even very small organizations in terms of training and consulting them and coaching a lot of the founders on these aspects. So what I have seen is the people who really succeed in the longer run are the ones who have focus on all aspects. If you just focus on growth and you're going to cut corners on some of the other stuff, it's really not a long-term story. I think we've had some discussions on that as well, and I think Wealthy Nivesh focus on all of these aspects is really, really nice.
And so you mentioned one word, culture. So there is one traditional saying कि you hire first 100 people, you inculcate culture in them, and then they will take it forward. So let's not go on the numeric term of 100 people, but how do you look at this? Does it matter that how cultural values are imbibed in the initial set of people, or what kind of cultural values they bring to the table?
I think yes and no again, because yes, the initial team does kind of resonate and imbibe the culture. However, in today's world, we see a lot of traction, a lot of movement, right? Not necessarily that all the X number of people that you hired are going to continue
Correct.
with you. They're going to move out. You're going to get new people. Even when you're 50 or 75 or 100, there's going to be a mix of new people. How do you make sure those new people are getting the right set of values and culture? So that is why I feel culture is not a one-time project or exercise.
It's an ongoing.
It's an ongoing thing that should be lived and talked and done. And you can't just have one exercise of this is our culture, this is how we're going to do things, and that's it. That's okay as a reiteration and a regular ongoing thing. But more importantly, is culture is about how the leadership team walks the talk.
Great.
So if they don't see the leadership team, if the staff don't see the leadership doing the right behaviors, then you can't expect them to follow different things. I mean, they will end up doing what the leadership team is doing.
And one of the most dreaded words in India is change. So people don't want to move out of their comfort zone, whether it is about their studies, their career, or anything. You're one of those very rare people who have, looked for change even in your academics or in corporate also. And even beyond corporate, in the sense you moved from employee to entrepreneur.
Right.
So what made you, being so amicable to the change?
I think early on it was a very natural thing. I didn't consciously do it. It just happened early on. And I think that built what you just said in terms of my comfort with trying out new things and not really being afraid to take calls which are divergent and, which people may hesitate to, go into or delve into. So I think that has helped me. And then over time, that has become almost like something that I look out for. That what are the things that are going to change? What's going to happen in the future? And how can I kind of be a little bit ahead in the game and be the change driver instead of someone who's just reacting to the change. So I think that's what I tell a lot of people that I coach as well, that, how can you be the change driver as opposed to just accepting the change or reacting to the change? So I think that's something that really helps when you have that kind of a thought process.
Or it may also be that you get energized by the change itself, that when you get challenges, you feel more energized.
I think that might be the case, yes. So I do enjoy, I would again not say challenges, I would say I do enjoy opportunities that are thrown up and that come across. And I love to have diverse experiences, whether it's my personal or professional life. So, I really like to look out for what else can be done and what can be done differently. So yeah, that's been there, and that's been part of the entrepreneurial journey as well. When I started off, I did a mix of dabbling, a bit of recruitment, a bit of training, a bit of product training. But then as things evolved, I developed my forte, again, because of my like and passion in the leadership development, soft skills kind of genre. And in the leadership development, soft skills space. And that includes, working with a lot of senior executives, coaching them, doing a lot of workshops, consulting them on what's the right approach, and then working from an HR perspective, even being a fractional HR kind of person. So I think that's been the space that I've kind of worked in a lot over the past few years. Love doing that because there again, there's a lot of change. It's not the same stuff that I'm doing every day. There's different things that I work with different
No
people.
monotony.
Each individual is different. While the core concept or theme of doing a workshop might be the same, but the industry is different. The stage at which the organization is different. So I think that is what excites me, and I think that is also in a way what I look at is what you are doing, right? Because I mean, you are into investment, and a lot of investment is quite similar in a way
Yes.
to a lot of things that one does in leadership, actually. I mean, it's surprising, but when I think and I look back, I mean, there's so many similarities in terms of, let's say, how decisions are made. How as a leader you're taking decisions in terms of your strategy, what do you want to achieve as a long-term goal, what do you want to achieve as a short-term goal. It's not different from what you're doing with your investments. I mean, you need to have a strategy in terms of what is it that you want to achieve as a long-term goal from your investments, what is it that you want to achieve as a short-term goal. And I think you, as Wealthy Nivesh, have really excelled in that in terms of really figuring it out with your clients in terms of helping them understand that and helping them work out solutions for that. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of commonality in that.
So, Mr. Jain, being an engineer, so I have realized one thing, that in India we have a huge focus on knowledge part. And again, most of the times, softer skills side is the victim. That you invest so much energy and time into developing your knowledge part that you don't get time to develop softer skills. That's how it has been traditionally in India and even worldwide. If you where you invest, you get returns from there only.
Right.
Do you think that situation is changing now? Do you foresee it changing at faster speed in coming days? What are your views about the same?
I think it's definitely changing. It has been changing over the years as well. I mean, very early when we started our careers, it was just you need to have the technical knowledge and that's pretty much it, right? But things have evolved and people do look at other skills now. And from a structured perspective as well, I think there are a lot of institutions now in the I would say professional space, in the post-graduation space, which are focusing on a lot of the other skills, not just the technical functional skills.
Correct.
They are looking at skills like communication, like problem solving, like innovation. How are these skills ingrained and at least talked about? Design thinking is another one that really comes into play. There's so many design schools now in terms of helping people figure out how to do design thinking and apply design thinking to a lot of aspects, right? So I think it's definitely changed, but there's still a lot more to do.
So you mentioned about design thinking, and I remember Steve Jobs once said that he could make Apple because he knew calligraphy, which may sound weird at to listen for the first time, but then he defined it. By calligraphy, I got to understand how designs work, how I can make new fonts, etc., etc. So now moving to the center stage topic, money. How's been your experience and journey with money?
So,
And my follow-up question is, how do you resonate it with the work that you are doing, which is like leadership development? So you do.
Okay.
So does it do these two domains overlap, or do you find some practices or learnings from one domain to another?
I think on the face of it, two different domains. So one is really managing money, and the second is leadership in terms of how do you manage your organization, your team, and all of that stuff. As I alluded to earlier, I think there is some similarities in terms of the underlying themes, I would say. Not in terms of really the domains, but in terms of the themes, I think there's definitely some overlaps. So we spoke about decision making, right? How that helps. I mean, in leadership, we always talk about how you work with your mindset, your mind in terms of leadership making and decision making. There's this wonderful book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Thinking fast and slow.
Where he talks about, the two systems in your brain, how one is more cognitive, one is more kind of quick, analytical. And
Lizard mind.
Yeah. So those are the two kind of systems that your brain has. And how do you control which system you're going to use for what decision is key. If you're going to get up in the morning and make your cup of tea, you don't need to use your analytical brain. You know it, you'll just follow the motions and you'll have your cup of tea. But if you want to invest, if you want to figure out what's the right avenue for investment right now, you can't just do it like that. You have to apply a bit of your analytical mind. You have to figure out things. So that's where I see the overlap. A lot of the underlying themes, how they are used in both spheres, in leadership and in money, are really interesting.
But correct me if I'm wrong, in the same book, he also mentioned that we believe that we are taking logical step, but subconsciously it's driven by our subconscious mind only without us even realizing that.
Bang on.
So that reminds me of another book, which is The Art of Thinking Clearly, where the author talks about 99 biases that we suffer from. And my favorite one is always the confirmation bias. Okay, I want to buy this share, so I will look for reasons only to buy it. Correct. So my question to you is ki how can one fight these biases which unconsciously creeps into our decision making?
So fantastic.
And I'm sure you would be having some sort of case study for leadership development also in this domain.
Exactly. So I think you've hit the nail on the head, because the fantastic point that we're just talking about is in leadership development, we talk a lot of things about biases, how we have a lot of these unconscious biases and how we should not allow them to interfere in our leadership decision making in terms of how I'm dealing with my clients, how am I dealing with my team, my stakeholders, how I'm taking decisions, whether it's a simple hiring decision or some other decision about a project. And you brilliantly said that how that same biases are also applied in investment decision making, how it shouldn't be swayed by what we call the herd mentality, right? A confirmatory bias where everybody's running towards the market and we are doing the same. Everybody's selling out and we are doing the same. So I think that's very, very important. The big thing is really, one, being aware about it, which becomes difficult for an individual. And that's where a coach or somebody external comes in. And I think Wealthy Nivesh plays a key role here in terms of how you really bring that third angle in terms of really figuring out what the investments are, reconnecting what the goal is and where you want to work towards, and then suggesting, right? So I think that's really, really important. From a leadership perspective, the first step to avoid a bias is to be aware that this bias exists.
Self-aware.
And how I'm going to really work on it and be aware of it when that's going to hit me. I think the same logic is there in the investment side, the money side as well, that I need to be aware that I shouldn't be swayed by everything. I should stick to some fundamentals. And that could vary by your investment strategy or decision, whether it's short-term, whether it's long-term, whether it's speculative, whether it's whatever it is, right? So I think you have to follow the rules of the game based on your investment.
And do you think in India, means as a leadership coach, do you think in India another challenge for any leader is that we have a very high hierarchy society? So we are prone as leader to become arrogant also because our subordinates are always supposed to just follow us. Boss ने कहा है काम करना है. So do you think that's another challenge that unconsciously unaware of this challenge we also behave in a certain manner?
So that happens with authority, and
Yes.
That becomes another bias more from the people down below, because they have this authority bias where somebody senior to them is telling them something and they follow it blindly or go with it, and that fuels the bias in you because you feel you're the boss and you can do anything and you can, you
Get
have
away
the
with
power to say and do things which ideally you should not. So yes, that is unfortunately one of the things that persists a lot. However, things are changing. We see a lot of new age leaders working with a lot of empathy, working with what we call a lot of empowerment, a lot of inclusion, so to speak. So they're involved in getting their team to really give ideas, in getting their team to really figure out what's the way forward and take decisions. So I think that's changing. And what we've seen is those are the kind of leaders that really do well. Those are the kind of leaders that people respect, right? So that is something that we've seen. So yeah, those biases do exist.
So Mr. Jain, even though you don't look like 50s, but I believe you are in your 50s. So my question to you is ki if you can take us about your journey with money in your 20s, 30s, 40s and now 50s.
Okay. Well, I think I'll say two things. One is early on, I was never really so conscious. A lot of things that I did were just that I did, and some of those things have turned out right, and it's good. And some of the things, when I look back, I say maybe I should have done more of that, or I missed doing that, etc.,
But
etc.
that's how we learn.
That's how we learn, right? So I think, even though from an early stage, so right from my early 20s, I have been, in the BFSI space, in the capital market space, but I wasn't really too much into investment. Yes, a one-off here and there, some little thing done, but I wasn't too much over there. It was only after a good number of years that I realized that, okay, that's a space that one should go into, and, that's a good space to be in. So that's surprising, when you're day in and day out doing something, but you don't follow it for yourself. You're doing it for your clients. You're doing it as a job, but you're not taking the benefit of that. I think that's something that is a realization that, maybe should have started doing things earlier. So like, I told my son once that I should have applied for the Infosys IPO, right? So
In hindsight.
in hindsight, yeah.
Yes.
So,
But so my question to you is if you can, tell us more specific where you were investing in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, and now. And did you manage to develop any framework basis your learnings, basis your failures, etc., etc.? So if you can give us more specific, detailing of the same.
okay. So I think 20s was not much really. It was just some ad hoc stuff done. So I wouldn't really count that. That was more, very, very ad hoc. 30s is where I really started, looking at it and said, okay, I should make some regular stuff, and, started doing some specific investment in equity. Otherwise, it was usually just FDs and nothing much. So that's when I started doing some regular equity stuff. But I have always been an advocate of investing and staying put. Now,
Boring investing.
boring investment, yeah. And that has its pluses and minuses. So I have stuck with some investments which are, frankly, today, if I look back, the value is nothing. But yeah, there have been some other good ones as well. So that's what I did in most of my 30s. Towards the latter part of the 30s, I also started doing some regular stuff. I realized that, I'm probably not, because of the time constraints and other stuff, I'm probably not the best person to really look at the markets. And then I started doing some SIPs. So in mutual funds, that was something that I started because I thought, let the professionals do what they're doing. And, I started doing some SIPs. So that continued for a few years. And that, I think, was a good decision that I made in hindsight.
So when did you start doing your SIP sincerely?
I think it was around the mid-30s. I think 34, 35 is when I really said, okay, let me kind of not try to see. Whenever I remember, I look at the market and do something, that becomes, and never used to happen in a disciplined manner. So then,
Practically with all the corporate assignments, you can't do it.
Right. So then that's when I started doing SIPs, and I thought, okay, let the professionals manage, let the mutual fund business do what they're supposed to do. So that's when I started, and that continued for some time. Although I didn't continue that for long, right? So, and I think that shift happened as I ventured from my corporate roles into my entrepreneurship journey. So that's when that shift happened, because I thought I'll have more time, I'll look at it myself and all that stuff. And again, that didn't happen really. So that doesn't happen. So that's when that shift happened. So there was a good time stint in between where there was some regular SIPs done. Yeah.
And that helped you to build your wealth?
I think yes, especially when I look back now, I think it really, so that's where what we all say, the compounding effect, right? So I think that helps to build that, what you said earlier, the long-term boring investments, that helps to build a bit of stuff. Then I think in the 40s, continuing the question that you said about 20s, 30s, 40s, is when I looked at a mix, I looked at what should really be the mix. So yes, the equity, a bit of it continued. Then because I was an entrepreneur and there wasn't really
Assured income.
I made sure that there's some decent amount in debt for any emergencies and other stuff over there. So there was some conservative investment in terms of really having things in debt. There was some investment in real estate as well, although I haven't really been very big or bullish on real estate. But yeah, a one-off investment was done over there. So that's how it continues. I think now it's a balance. I do look at a balance in terms of more between fixed returns and equity. So that's how I balance right now. That's what I'm doing right now.
So if I talk about, investment avenues for an individual at individual level, so we can think of FD, so-called LIC policies, then mutual funds, then direct stocks, and then PMS and AIF. So, what has been your experience with these different product classes?
So I think FDs, every Indian has some or the other FDs always there, and I think that is one of the things that everybody has. I would encourage that, how we can look at more tax efficient solutions rather than FDs. So that's one thing. There's a lot of options nowadays, and I think you are the best person to advise on that. You've done that for me as well. You said FDs and what else?
FD, mutual funds,
Ha, ha.
stocks, PMS,
yeah.
AIF,
So I think,
LIC policies.
LICs are okay. I mean, in terms of, I would recommend, health and term is at best at what you should do. Other than that, it's better to go on the other aspects. PMS and mutual funds, you have to take a balance. I think you should have a good amount in mutual funds, and PMS, you can do some amount in PMS because that sometimes give you a better alpha, a better return, but you have to really watch that and monitor that. Otherwise, you end up paying a lot more commission on that as opposed
And
to a mutual
taxation
fund.
also.
And taxation also, right? So you have to watch that. So yeah, that's the avenues that I have kind of used, and that's been reasonable for me. I think I'm not a huge investor or anything like that, and I think your help has been good in terms of, I remember how we first connected, right? I mean, you were, I think, in those days with HDFC Bank.
HDFC, yes.
And you were the RM, and I think we had discussed some aspects, and I think that was good because I think in those days I remember what really clicked with me was you were not the typical bank RM trying to sell some transaction or sell some mutual fund or do things like that. You really took the time out to figure out and understand, and actually made some recommendations that were sounding right to me from my journey and my long-term perspective, rather than अरे सर ये ले लो ये अच्छा है. So that was, I think, what differentiated you from a lot of the other people, and that's where I think we connected and we've been in touch ever since. So I think that's another thing that I look for in terms of how we really our journey. Even when I think before you started Wealthy Nivesh, you actually looked at stuff and recommended some changes, so that's again something that I said I wasn't even looking at these aspects or changes, and you've made those suggestions to me, which my existing option was pretty okay, but you looked at it and made suggestions which really made sense. So I think that's something that really was good.
So in a way, the engagement part without being on the sales side was something that impressed you, correct?
Correct.
Now, so you have been our client for all, by our I mean Wealthy Nivesh client for almost 3 years now. You are one of the initial set of clients that we got onboarded on Wealthy Nivesh. How's been your experience in last 3 years with us?
I think it's been fantastic. Like I said, our journey started even before that, and I think that trust factor remained. And I think that's really helped build the stuff in terms of keeping the trust factor. I see that you build a nice small team. I think the team is also well engaged in terms of, helping connect with the regular updates, helping give updates on what's happening. I remember a time when, the designated RM had called and said, so she understood the kind of person I am, and I'm not doing regular SIP. So, she called and said, now is a good time, you do something now, all of that stuff. So I think understanding what the client needs and how a client functions is important, because otherwise you can just go, "Arey sir, SIP kar lo, SIP kar lo." So that's something that I don't do. So, I think understanding that aspect and really figuring out your solutions to a customer. And that's again, when I go back, in leadership, you have to flex your styles based on who you're interacting with, what kind of client or what kind of stakeholder or what type of person you're dealing with. You flex your style. And accordingly, I see that you've developed that aspect, and you're teaching your team as well to flex their styles based on what the client preferences are and what they want. So I think that's brilliant.
So my first job was with Tata Motors, where I was a area manager. And I still remember my boss told me at that point of time that you should know how much you can push somebody. So you should know the push limits, and you should neither go beyond it and nor behind it. So that's what we try to do. So from what I could get, you meant that there was engagement, there was hand holding, and there was proper updates of the products, etc. as well. That's what you find useful about Wealthy Nivesh.
Correct.
Great.
And also, I think the understanding, like I said, in terms of the overall things that I want to do and my preferences. So you're kind of going along with that, and you're not pushing every product or every feature and every aspect all the time. So, like you said, the push, but not too much and not too less. So, customize the push to what the client wants.
As per the client.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Jain, for joining us. I just love the way you mentioned about leadership basis certain books, and we discussed so many biases. We discussed about your journey. I'm sure our audience will also benefit from this.
Thank you. Always great connecting and talking to you, Ankit. So all the best as you continue to grow Wealthy Nivesh.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. So I hope you found this session as useful. In case you have any topic in mind or any personality that we can invite on the podcast, do mention in the comments. We'll try to do it for you. Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining us.